Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Matchmaker session today. My name is Hannah Elgersma, and I am the project coordinator for City Lab Hamilton. Matchmaker events are where we learn more about the projects that have been submitted by staff members, and we work with our faculty members to try and find good student, faculty, and staff matches or partnerships to tackle the projects. Today we are joined by Kim Ryan. Thank you for being here, from the who is the Senior Housing Administration Officer with Healthy and Safe Communities in the City of Hamilton. And the project brought forth today is to provide a citizen-centered approach for applicants to make better informed decisions about their housing. This is very interesting, important conversation today. First off, Kim, could you please tell us a little bit about your role at the city and how your work impacts Hamiltonians?
As the Senior Housing Administration Officer, we help provide rent geared to income housing. And at the end of the continuum, so we are housing people, but in housing services, we deal with all parts of the housing continuum. In my current role as acting supervisor of the Access to Housing, I supervise the team that administers the centralized wait list for the City of Hamilton. And that is the wait list for all rent geared to income housing.
Thank you. So let's start to talk about this challenge specifically. Any relevant background information or key objectives, what you're looking for in this project?
Yes, so there are lots of changes in housing. And a lot of challenges with the growing need for affordable housing. And we have some really good systems in place. We have an upgraded computer system that we help administer, so that helps with the list. But there are some, with our list, we do housing as when an individual signs up for our list, they complete an application form, and there are obviously rules and eligibility requirements. So is the first part, but the second part is a building selection. So people in Hamilton get to decide where in Hamilton they would like to live out of the specific units that we have available for rent geared to income housing. So sometimes there is a bit of disconnect and there is, sorry, I'll go back. And there is new legislation since 2021, provincial legislation that says you will receive only one offer of housing. So with that change, it becomes more and more important for the citizen that needs the housing to make an informed decision about the buildings that they've selected and where they want to live. The struggle with that is there is a lot. There are thousands of units, and how do we balance that? And how do we get the information that, quite honestly, we have the information, but it continually needs updated. So the information we have may be older, and also different methods on how we communicate that. But now I think we need to focus on just updating our information.
I hear you. And so can you guide us through a little bit the process for someone to apply for housing, how it works at the moment, and improvements you'd like to see?
Yes, so the process to apply, you complete an application. It's listed on our website, which is the most up to date. And they complete the application with their information, must submit the eligibility criteria to be a Canadian citizen, etc. And that application goes in. the second part of that application is the building selection log. And really, that comes just which buildings are available. Your eligibility depends on the occupancy standards. So if you are a single person, you would be eligible for a 1-bedroom or a bachelor apartment. You would not be eligible for a 2 or a 3-bedroom. So we have policies on eligibility criteria. We have policies on occupancy standards. And then when it comes to the building selections, we do have quite an extensive form, and there's quite a bit of information. You know, we would put whether it's modified or whether it's wheelchair accessible, how many bedrooms, but we can't put a wealth of information. Sometimes even in areas of the city, somebody will be applying and say, well, where is this building? And we would say, well, you could look up on Google, or you could look. So sometimes that's hard to navigate for some people.
Mhm.
So the idea is that, you know, if we had a small sheet that's a PDF or some other way to communicate, they might be able to see it if they cannot navigate that kind of research that they need to do themselves.
Okay, so I'm hearing that this is a like a physical PDF that is filled out, and to discover information, that there needs to be research on each location, which can be limiting. And so,
Yes. And the sorry if I can
yes.
just, so the information not always is unit specific. It's really just building specific, because we don't know what unit you're going to get until the unit's vacant. So really they need general, and we do have some people that have refused based on, they've selected it on their building selection, but then they see, they get a phone call and they say, oh, I don't want to live in the East End or in the West End. I really only want to live on another, or they don't know where the building is and said, no, I want to stay somewhere else. So it's kind of after the fact. So, and because of the new legislation, then they're canceled off the list. So we're trying to be proactive so that people know what choices are available, more than just a cursory checklist if they haven't done their research, that we can kind of guide them in that.
Yeah, that makes sense. As well as that process of selecting based on the criteria, that the support of of being able to see the information and making the right choice, that's very important for their selection. So do you mind expanding on the specific deliverables or goals you're looking for from the student group? Or there can be space and room for change in that, but what your initial thoughts are?
Yeah, so really just a simple, if a citizen is having problems, you know, and it's not always easy access, quite honestly, like access to a computer, to say to someone that, or let's say a senior, for instance, that really isn't savvy on how to Google search and just look up like a satellite picture of the building, that we might be able to guide them. And really basic information. Like I said, we cannot give information about the specific unit, but we could give general information about when the building was built. Is it a 6-story building? Is it a 4-story? We do have that information, but it's dated. And we have it in a small PDF form. But like I said, a lot of that information likely has not changed, but we want to make sure that it hasn't, or you know, maybe some other information that people might want to know about, such as, is a school nearby? Is there, right? Is it close to schools? Is it on a bus route? Is it, right? And some people have refused housing and said, no, it's not near my doctor's office. But then if you haven't done research, you might not know that it's on a bus route and it's really just a short bus ride. I'm not sure. So we do have it. It's just a little bit dated. So I think to answer your question, how we could be assisted is that have somebody working on just updating that little PDF. And then the second step later on, and not probably now, would be how do we communicate that? But that is, for now, we got to get the information current and updated before we decide how to use it.
Right. And remind me how many different options there are, how many facilities, different ones are listed on the application form.
Oh,
Is,
you know what? I didn't,
I
I
think
had
last
that.
time,
I think I put it in, but I don't have it at my fingertips.
yeah, I think last time you said 90, maybe to 100. And so it would be going in for each of those spaces and making it, or updating the PDF with the information on them. And I think that's a wonderful start. I was talking to someone in engineering today about the possibility, could there be a system that actually flips it, and instead of putting down which units you're interested in, you put all the information about yourself, and then there's a system that actually generates the units that would fit your criteria, and that could be an interesting project for the future. So I wanted to put it out there to see if you had any thoughts. But for now, the first project we said is a great place to start with collecting the information.
Yes. Yeah, so our project is much simpler,
yes,
because we do have some different computer systems and things in the work. But what you are describing, Toronto does something similar to that, in that, but it's totally different, and we're not looking
yes,
to do that at Hamilton at this point, but it is a little bit similar to what you're describing. It's more like an advertisement, and then you choose if you're interested, and then from that the list goes. But in Hamilton, we still go by the choice, but it's in the order from the list, then the choice.
yes. Okay. And so based on the deliverables you're looking for, do you have specific ideas of how they would be used? I think you touched on this would be information that you could provide people who ask for more information on specific spaces. Is that the case?
Yeah, really, it's just it's a small piece of that, just information. So the more information, the more informed choice they make. Otherwise, it's kind of, and some, I will be honest, some of our applicants are excellent at that and do quite a bit of work on their own and research. Some do not. So we're just trying to balance. We're not sure why they don't, or is it a hindrance, or if there's something easy that, whether it could be handed to them or in electronic form, that's what we don't know, but at least give them some information.
Right. Yeah.
Some updated information, I should say.
Yes. So it starts with the collection. Absolutely. Before we end the formal section, would you like to add anything else about this project?
No, just that for me, it's an exciting. We really have not used CityLab or done that so in the past. So it's a great opportunity, and also to work with students that quite honestly have lots of these skills. And I believe that they could learn quite a bit. Although this is a really small project, just about updating information, they would learn also about social housing and supply and demand and what is available.
Absolutely, which is very impactful for us as well. I think to be aware of what's out there and the demand and how resources are accessed. Well, thank you so much, Kim, for bringing this project forward and for your description today. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
All right. I think actually for today, I'm just going to keep the recording going just in case there's any tidbits that we keep discussing that I want to add to our video. But yeah, I'll open the floor. That's the end of the formal section. I'll open the floor to questions or comments on this project. Harold, you're muted.
Go ahead, Jason.
Oh, I was just going to ask for maybe some clarification. Before the session, at the very beginning, we were talking about the demand and supply. So you had mentioned, Kim, that I think there were more than 8,000 individuals on that wait list, but I couldn't hear exactly what the supply was of the amount of units available.
Yeah, so I don't have the specific numbers on that. It exceeds it. And it can sometimes fluctuate. If there's a new development, some units may have been taken offline, but then they're redeveloped and then they're offered. Also, you know, as new buildings are built. So some of our information are, like I said, tombstone information in the building has not changed, but we've also had some new buildings come on. We've also had some new buildings renovated. So to give an exact number, and then we're talking, generally the wait list talks about buildings. Those numbers talk about units. So again, we can't offer, right, this unit, you know, the door opens to the, you know, the best we could do is a general square footage and, you know, the bedroom size.
Right. So the reason I asked the question was because in my own head, I'm trying to understand how many data points maybe a project team would be looking at trying to gather and collect to update this PDF or that building selection log. So I'm just trying to understand if hypothetically, let's say there were 5,000 units and, you know, we have to gather 10 data points for each building unit. So that would be, you know, do the math on that, on how many data points we're supposed to be collecting. So I just wanted to see kind of the scale of the project. Yeah,
actually the data points would be fairly close to that. I have not gone through each one because depending on, but we really have that older information and we can use that as a jumping off. Sometimes it will just be a cursory, right? The building, when the building was built, will not have changed. But so yes, that's a data point, but not necessarily one that needs change. But there may be some, you know, such as the new buildings, we would have to put that data in.
Right.
But for the most part, it would be just double checking that the information, and quite honestly, it's from 2015 to 2018 is now still relevant.
Very cool. Yeah, I guess the more data
points, is time. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, the more data points we can provide, I guess the more informed the person could be to make that decision, right? So yeah, that's really cool. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so Kim, the current binder like is kept in a physical form, right? Are there I can't remember if I asked you this already. Are there digital copies of the older information of the buildings?
Yes, so I believe when you and I talked, it was in binder form, and I was able to find an electronic form. So I'm quite excited. So yeah, so it will be a much easier transfer and, you know, change audit, I guess.
Okay, so so on that file, have you had a chance, it's okay if not, to compare to the application form and see how many of the units are
yeah, no,
that's totally fair.
Yeah, I have not had a chance to do that yet.
Yeah. Oh, that's great though. It's good to have something to work off of. Yeah, Jason, do you have any other questions or thoughts?
And the first thought that came to my mind was I like to just take a look at houses that are available on realtor.ca.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
like that tool because it gives you a lot of information on a map, right? And so when you're going through realtor.ca and you're clicking through the areas of a specific location that you have in mind, you can kind of see exactly where the houses or apartments are. And then when you click into that particular posting, let's say, it gives you all that information at a glance. So in my head, I think it's really, I don't exactly know kind of where we are right now with that handbook or that building selection log. But ambitiously, I can, it would be great to one day have something like that as a tool for individuals to take a look at and visually be able to see where these buildings are located and more information about specifically, what conveniences are perhaps close by, and other information about those buildings specifically.
Yeah.
If I can just, I love that idea, and I love, and we've thought of that as well, and the enthusiasm, but we're not like that. We're not quite there yet because we don't have the actual data to decide how to disseminate it and what it looks like. So I think if we just focus on the update, but you're right, then that can, and it also it has to mesh and jive and have the capabilities of our current data set and our current system, which is fairly new. So I would have to have more colleagues in on that. It's not my area of expertise. We have an awesome project manager for that, and I'm sure she would be happy to help, but we're not quite there yet. So that would be, step 2 or 3.
Mhm.
But yeah, I love the enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And some municipalities do have a similar.
Mhm. And that is always a possibility as another project down the road. I do hear you that the collection of information is a good place to start. And I mean, I'll speak on behalf of Harold because he's not here anymore. Harold is one of the 3 professors of the capstone class, which is interdisciplinary class at Redeemer that every student takes, and it's a very intensive, like, project-based class where where they get a project at the beginning and then make deliverables, produce it throughout the semester. And so that could be a good option. I know there would be a few there would be social work and social sciences students in there, but I mean, I'd be happy to give you a chance, Jason, to look and see if there's other connections, and I will continue as well through Mohawk as well as McMaster to see if there's other student groups that could take something like this on, for another faculty to connect with. I know you just started in this role, Jason, but I'm glad you were able to come and start seeing the process. So if you have any questions for me as well, I'd be happy to answer those now or at another time about how the process works.
So I was just going to say, I think in terms of programs that I'm familiar with at Mohawk, planning, urban and regional planning and GIS program, and they tackle topics like affordable housing. And it would be interesting to kind of see what sort of capacity they have to maybe take on projects like this, where I know some students who work with specific programs like ArcGIS, they map out, it's almost like they kind of create a map. So there are, I guess, targets on a map that they're interested in, and then they can map out what conveniences are close by to those targets. And so it might be relevant when you're doing this data collection to have a group of students take a look at where these buildings are situated in what neighborhoods and what sort of conveniences might be close by, like grocery stores or laundromats, et cetera, and have that mapped out as data points that can inform citizens when they are making those decisions on which, buildings they want to live at.
Yes, so yeah, just to clarify, so we have had some GIS mapping on where units are, but we're kind of getting to the they may be in, the East End or the mountain, but other information other than the mapping part of it. So it's a little bit disconnected. So there's some information on what's available. There's some on mapping. Yeah, there has been some, and then also how do we disseminate that information? But again, great connections.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of mapping, Jason, I don't know if this project will be relevant to that yet, but I like the idea. But we do have another project related to forestry that is looking for GIS mapping at some point. And so I'd be happy to connect with you or receive connections from MAC or from Mohawk on the ArcGIS planning courses or faculty members, because I think that would be a great match at some point. But that is a good thought, because it would be like when you view it in the future and think like, well, that makes so much sense to have a system, and that even relates to the realtor idea, to have a system where you can just see like, oh, this is walkable and this is where all the important things are in the area of the buildings. So I appreciate that. Yeah. So as for the process, I will, I'll take some of this information and get it together, and I will put it on our website as well as share it with other connections that are made, and see what we find. Kim, will there be somebody in your role, or if, like, will there be anybody else on this project if your contract is up? I'm just curious on the continuity of the project.
I'll double check. I believe so. Yeah,
Okay.
I believe there'll be another person, but we'll
Perfect,
know
yeah.
more in the next couple weeks.
All right. Well, keep me updated so that we can get that connection made. Do you have a timeline for when you want this established by? Just curious.
No, just any help is greatly appreciated.
Wonderful. So our timeline is, I would love to find a match by the end of July, so that we can start the project early September. Depends on what course it ends up integrated into, but yeah, it'd be wonderful to get that going in the next couple of weeks. So I'll keep you updated, and yeah, I really appreciate you coming out and explaining the project again. I know you already explained it to me, so thank you. Any last questions or thoughts? Not
for me.
Wonderful. Well, Jason, I'm looking forward to meeting you, hopefully at some point in person. And I'm glad you could make it. Feel free to take a look at our other projects. If there's any other matchmakers you'd like to attend, you're more than welcome. I appreciate your presence, and we'll talk further.
Awesome. Yep. Thank you, Hannah, for inviting me. I appreciate this being my first session, kind of getting a grasp on what the topics are for discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. All right. Thank you both.
Okay. Thank you, Kim, too. I appreciate the presentation.
Great. Thanks. Hope to be in touch soon.
Yes. Wonderful.
Bye.
Bye.